Hey guys, and welcome to Pheas Airsoft, where today we're going to disassemble this CM.009 XM177 E2 edition. So I just want to make a note on safety. Whether I'm disassembling, unboxing, chronoing, whatever it is I'm doing, I always make sure I'm in a completely safe environment. So that means most of my videos I'm always wearing eye protection just to make sure that my eyesight stays safe. Before I do that, I always make sure that there's no ammunition in any of the mags or in the gun itself. I make sure that the mags are unloaded and unwound to make sure that nothing can happen with that. Obviously, if I'm chronoing, then I have absolutely definitely got my eye protection on to protect myself. I even make sure that my batteries are removed and out of the way so that I know I'm in the safe environment. I also make sure that there's nobody else around as well either, so I'm always in a safest possible environment. If you are working with airsoft stuff, please make sure you do the same. Hi guys, and welcome back. If you do enjoy this content today or any of it, please do like and subscribe because you'll be really helping me out. So following the recent unboxing of this XM177, we're going to do the disassembly. I have put the unboxing link down below, so go and give it a click if you've not seen the unboxing. So this is obviously another one, and I'm pretty sure it'll be identical to the M16 from last time internally. So we'll get through it and have a good look. So I'm going to take off the hop-up thing, and we'll get started with the muzzle brake. I do love these style of muzzle brakes, and first thing we do is remove this with a tiny little grub screw. And it should be, and it is. So there you've got the negative thread. You can see the barrel comes to just short of the end of the outer barrel, and that is full metal. It's got quite a bit of weight to it that I really do like. I love the general look of the XM177s. That is a negative 40mm thread. Gone too far. There we go. Tighten that back down. It does add, not as much as the GMP edition used to do, but it adds a nice little pop. Your front sight post then, remove the magazine. You've got two pins, one here and one here. You pop those out, and you'll also need to remove this C pin here in here to remove the sling loop, and that gives you access to a little grub screw underneath. Undo that and this sight post comes off. Before you can do that properly though, you need to pull back on the delta ring here and release the handguards. Now these are in really nice and firm, like we found with the M16. They're well manufactured, well engineered, that they fit really snug together and they sit in really tightly, which is good. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my snips and cut this wiring away. It's a long time since I've seen one of these types of front wired M4. So snip that one, and take those out of the way. Obviously, like I said in the unboxing, I would consider putting maybe just even a little bit of electrical tape around these exposed parts of connectors, because the last thing you want is them touching on the outer barrel, both of them, and creating a short in there. And what we need to do is, take that out of the way, is we're just going to separate these two connectors from each other. Might need to use quite a bit of, there we go, force. So it is sort of like a, almost like a bullet connector. And that one as well. There we go. Now these will feed back through this hole here and release the gearbox, which we'll come to in a minute. Once you remove the front sight post and take the gas tube with it, you can then use some grips or adjustable grips or an armorer's wrench like mine and grab hold of this, and this will unfasten in a usual positive thread to unscrew, and that releases all your outer barrel assembly as well. So next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pop the upper off, and we'll have a look at the inner barrel and show you how this feeds through. Now, it's not often you get a traditional front wired M4 anymore, so these wires are slightly different lengths on purpose to allow as much room as possible for each other. And what I'm going to do is, learn this little trick. When splitting this, the catch that keeps the dust cover, the ejection port open, can sometimes catch on the upper receiver. So I've pulled the pin all the way out. I'm going to lift it up slightly. I'm going to pull back on the charging handle, and I'm going to press the bolt release in, all whilst moving the dust cover out of the way, and that should, it says famous last words, release it all. Now, being very careful, you'll see the wires have gone in there. Please be very careful. You can see them being exposed here, coming around the side of the hop unit and into the side of the gearbox, which we'll look at in a minute. There's a little bit of fluff in there. So I'm just going to carefully pull those through, and you can see those have come out, and lift that out of the way. And there are the wires there, and they went down this side of the hop unit and into, there is a little wiring hole there, just there, that they feed through into the front handguard. So take out the barrel. Obviously it's the exact same hop unit as the M16, significantly shorter barrel as you would expect. It's an M4, it's about 30 centimeters long. It is pristinely clean, and that at the minute is set for 0.25 gram BB. So that's from the test fire. So I'm just going to twist that fully on. Literally barely moved at all further forward. So that is a fully on hop unit. I'll take that right back, and that's fully off. So there's the tiniest little bit of hop in there. Not enough to, I doubt that would even hop a 0.2, but it's shot fine and lovely and with great distance for us at the Creek Airsoft. So the upper is identical to the M16. The dust cover can be removed either by, the C-clip's in a different place. The C-clip is in this gap here for some reason, whereas before it was on there. Basically, you remove that, this pole will come out, releasing all this assembly. We've got an extra spring in here attached to the ejection port that helps it to return when it's been locked open for adjusting the hop unit. And then obviously we've got traditional charging handle here with a spring screwed into the front of the upper there. So it's all replaceable relatively easily if you want to. So I'll get that out of the way. So now on to the lower, and we'll get into the gearbox. I'm going to fully extend the stock and then pull down on the handle, and that releases it off the back there. I believe that is the correct type of stock for a Vietnam XM. So I've got a little Phillips head in here, and I'm going to have a look while we're at this to see if the wiring could actually be rerouted to go into the stock as opposed to the handguard. Now you would have to change the actual wiring itself because they come wired for front wiring or rear wiring. Now the little plate that's down there has actually got a little gap in it for wiring. So in theory, if you could get hold of the correct MOSFET with the rear wiring on it, or replace it with another MOSFET with rear wiring on it, or if you were a dab hand with a soldering iron, you could strip the wiring away, lift that out. There is actually, if I just get that out, there we go. So there is a gap there in this plate which you could Dremel it out a little bit more. In all honesty, you could get a Dremel and just cut this out a little bit more. You could, in theory, there is a gap in the spacer there, there's a gap out the back of the, in theory you might need to trim down this little bit here just to allow this little bit here underneath the I can't even remember the name of this part that holds the stock on. You might need to just trim this down to create a little bit extra room for the wiring to come through. But in theory, no, there might just be enough for in there. You could, with a little bit of work, get this rear-wired. Okay. When you are reassembling it, this plate, it's got bulbous on one side, as you can see there. That is what goes into the back of receiver like that. So that should be the hollow part there, like that. So we have got confirmed the quick change spring system, so I'll open that up. We did find that the compression was pretty damn good in the M16, and the Allen key that was in the box does match that hole there, which is obviously reassuring that they weren't just wildly throwing random things in the box. So that's nice and tight, some big nice sort of chunky threads in here, help keep it secure. What I will say is it's a little bit scratchy, almost like it's not been cleaned out properly after machining for a thread. So it would be worth noting that it might be worth a clean out to stop any debris knocking about. And there it is released. It's the exact same system. It's got the bearing at the bottom, a single piece screw-in spring guide. There is our spring, exactly the same as the X16. It's tapered at the back there, which obviously is to go on there. It's not quite as tapered as the M16. The front end offers a wider gap, but it's tapered at the end. So next we'll remove, now the pin was missing and was in the box from this, so we're just going to knock that pin through, and it's got little teeth. Oh, it's not a little rubber O-ring on the end there, so I'll just pull that out. In fact, I can get it out like that. And to release this out, once your pin's out of the way, if you push down on the catch on this side, push down, and then hopefully you can see in there, it releases it out. Or I can put it back in again, just the same. And I take that out, and there it is. The little pin can stay there for now. Next, I need a Torx 6 to release the mag release button. I've kept the screw in there. There's the spring. There's the rest of the mag catch. It's looking rather nice. Next, we'll do the pistol grip. As a reminder with these, the red wire comes up the back of the pistol grip. So it comes out the back of the gearbox, not the front hole in the gearbox. I'll show you what I mean in a second. On a traditional wired M4 variant or AR variant, usually the red wire will come out the front hole. On this occasion it does. How bizarre. So the red wire is coming out of the front hole on this one, but that's because the wiring's been changed. Because this is front wired, that makes sense. So the red wire does come out of the front hole on this one. It comes round the side like you would traditionally find, up the back, and then back around onto the terminal, and the black one comes out of the back, up and onto its terminal. So I'll lift that out of the way. Next we'll release the two pistol grip screws, which are top left, bottom right, as you're looking into it. Just be careful pulling your wires through and make sure that you're delicate with them. You don't want to strip any of the insulation away and expose wires and causing shorts and things later. So next I'm going to punch this wire out, this pin out, and the teeth were on the left hand side again. I suppose with the quick change springs it makes it easy for Taiwan Gun to do downgrades for people, because they can literally just take the stock off and the spring's easily accessible there, so it's a quick and easy change system. So I'm going to pull this pin out all the way out, because we found that this caused issues with getting the gearbox out. I'm going to pull it forward, if I can, just enough to get this clip out of the way, because the clip can also get in the way. So just brought it forward just enough. There we go, just enough that I could lift this plastic clip off, and it literally just had about a mil of clearance, if that, to get it out of the way. Then I'm just going to keep the pin out of the way whilst I do the usual, there we go, more or less angling it from the back and pulling forward. It is quite tricky and it does need a little bit of force. So first thing I'm going to say there is we have got a screw with a little clip. That's quite neat and tidy, that. Get rid of that, bit of fluff attached to what looks like a bit of grease under there. So the wires come out up into this little clip here, which I'll undo to help us with the disassemble it. So that's just a little clip like that that screws over the top. It's quite clever, that. Put that out of the way. So I'm going to move the camera down and we'll have a look internally. So now we're ready to get into here. This is the latch that keeps the ejection port open, so I'm just going to undo this screw. Take that out, lift up this handle. Now this spring, it's got a hook on one end, like that, and that sits in this hole, and then it anchors around this little post, and then the other side you can see it's turned up slightly. Let's focus on it. It's turned up slightly, so I'll show you like that. It's turned up slightly, and that's what sits in this empty gap like that. When it focuses, there we go, and moves up and down on there. So I'll get those out of the way for now. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to remove the screws, making sure to remove the little one here that's for the cut-off. Make sure you keep these screws in the right order. That one for the safety, even not the cut-off, is very different to the rest. So the screws are all out now, and what we're going to do is I'm just going to use my flat head to just help me split this. when it wants to go. And it doesn't. There we go, it's splitting now. What I found before is that it was a little bit stuck, especially around the cylinder head, was jammed into the top. Separate those. There we go, and lift it all out. So, you got your daubing of blue grease in there going off, where they've just, as you would expect, just liberally just daubed it around just to keep things smooth and cycling round. They have used metal bushings, obviously for, I suppose, better longevity of the gearbox casing and the bushings in generals, making sure I'm not taking any shims off here and replacing those back in the side of the gearbox. So we've got the exact same gear set, well, it's the same gearbox as the M16, with the exception of the wiring. So the wiring obviously is different because it's front wired. So you've got wires coming out the front here and going under and out to the front, and then the other wiring obviously is coming in the back. If you are a dab hand with wiring, this wouldn't be difficult for you to obviously figure out and rewire it back to rear wiring if you wanted a LiPo in the stock tube or something. So you've got the exact same set up in here. You've got the nice blue plastic parts everywhere. This one is a vented cylinder. The M16 was unvented because of the barrel size, so I'll have a look at the compression in there. So you've got the nice blue anodized metal piston head. Not quite, there is definitely some pressure in there, but I can get the piston all the way in before it's capped, you know, sort of getting any real pressure up. But again, it's sort of doing 340, 345, so I can't complain at that too much really. It's obviously matching right to get that compression in there. Let's try it with the cylinder head on, the tap, oh god, air nozzle on. I'm having a right nightmare today. Again, obviously it's no better, which it wasn't going to be. The gear set is the same, exactly the same. It all looks relatively well shimmed. Obviously you've not got the issue for wiring it up here, but what I will say is, obviously this bit here is compressed, and it's worth just keeping an eye on that and make sure that it doesn't get damaged by over crimping it or anything. Obviously a little bit of the heat shrink in here, as you can see, is just nipped slightly. Now that's not the wire, that's just the heat shrink, but that's obviously possibly a little bit sloppy. But what you get is the blue wire there comes back from the positive red wire and feeds power into the actual circuit board itself. So the MOSFET basically releases the power directly to the motor without having to power all of this system up first, whereas in a traditional wiring system the power comes into this circuit, then when you complete the switch, which is pulling the trigger, the power is then sent the rest of the way through the circuitry to the motor. This bypasses it, which effectively can and should give you a better rate of fire because the voltage or the power from the battery goes directly through the wires to the motor without passing through this properly. I do believe, like I said with the M16, that is an optical sensor for picking out when the cycle's completed to complete a single shot. Obviously on full auto, I'm guessing there must be some sort of sensor, possibly optical. I'm not 100% sure, I can't tell for definite what it is, but there must be some sort of sensor that's picking up that it's in full auto, and to ignore obviously that isn't moving at all or anything. So it's looking really, really nice and solid under there. A little bit, maybe too much of this blue grease. There's no evidence, because it's had probably about 300, 400 rounds through it now. There's no evidence of rubbing on anything, which is a good sign. It means the shimming's at least doing its job, that nothing's rubbing against each other. So I'm pretty pleased with that. So I hope that's been helpful to you. Make sure that you remember in this variant, instead of, unlike the M16, the red wire is coming out of the front of the gearbox and the black is the back. In the M16, the red comes out of the back here and the black would come out of the front. So just obviously remember that if you are working on one of these. So hope that's been helpful to you. Please do make sure to like and subscribe, and I will see you next time. Bye.